Welcome to our weekly program, The Inside Story of Chabad in America through the Mindel Archives. Our last program we had was Thursday before Yom Kippur, and I said then that I'm going away for a few weeks out of town, so we won't have a program. And we didn't have a program, but everything is Hashgacha Protius. We didn't have a program, not because I went out of town, but because that day that I was supposed to go, I got fever in the morning, and I went to check, and I got the virus. So I was home for a few weeks, and Sidur gegangen, Baruch Hashem, bechesed uvrachamim, and Baruch Hashem, I'm fine now. I'm getting over it. Baruch Hashem. Everything is Hashgacha Protius. I once heard from Rabbi Chadakov. He once says, it says, Rabbi's machshova is belev ish, v'atzas Hashem hisokum. A person has a lot of thoughts, but whatever the Eibishter wants, hisokum, will be. So he says there's plan A and there's plan B. Rabbi's machshova is belev ish, that's plan B. But plan A is v'atzas Hashem hisokum. So Baruch Hashem, I'm fine now, and we're starting to have now our Thursday night program. I hope everybody had a Freilich Yontef, a Tishrei. Now, this week, I want to read to you a fascinating letter that Rabbi Mindel asked the Rebbe, the Ramash, in 49, before the Rebbe was Rebbe. A very interesting letter, and I want to get to it just in a couple minutes. But before that, since it's the beginning of Breshit, beginning of the Torah, reading the Torah, so I want to mention a nikuda about this, and also I saw in a letter. The Rebbe says, in the name of the Frierdiker Rebbe, Vim ishtolze chavek Shabbos Bereshis azei getus. The way you establish yourself, Shabbos Bereshis, that's how it's going to be the whole year. And I think he mentioned that the way you grease the wheel, Mishmir dem Vodin, that's how it's going to go. If you shmir it right, it's going to go right. So Shabbos Bereshis is a time where people have to make achlotes, and bedavke Shabbos Bereshis. He didn't say it on Shavuos. He didn't say it on Shmini Atzeres or Sukkos or other Yom Tovim. Bedavke Shabbos Bereshis v'mishtol tzechavek. That is the beginning of reading the Torah. That is the beginning of a hero, a Torah meloshin hero, that we can learn out how we should be, and we should establish ourselves on Shabbos Bereshis. Now, Shabbos Bereshis is a very unique. It's always Shabbos Mevorchim Cheshvan, and Shabbos Bereshis is always between Zman Simchaseinu and Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan, meaning that Tishrei is a month full of Yom Tovim, full of holidays, and Cheshvan we go into a month without any Yom Tovim. So a person might feel a little bit down. We have such a month, and now we're going into a month without Yom Tovim. So as the Rebbe mentioned, this is a Yerida going down, but the Yerida is Tzorich Aliyah. The whole Inyan von Olam Hazeh that a mensch is geborn, a person is born in this world, is Takia Yerida. But it's to accomplish, to elevate, to make a Dir Lo Yisbarich B'Tachtenim. And this is what the Torah says, Bereshis Bara Elokim. And then right away the Torah says, Vayomer Elokim Yehi Oyer. That Yisrein HaOyer Mitoich HaChoshech. When can you have the Oyer? Dafke from the Choshech. So when it comes, Shabbos Bereshis, which is Shabbos Mevorchim Cheshvan, so that is the time the Amensh Davzach Havekstone, how a person should be in his everyday life. I once mentioned, and maybe I'm going to mention it again, that Bereshis starts with a Beis. Beis is Brocha, as the Rebbe once mentioned when he was a child. The Aleph Beis had a taina. The Aleph Beis complained. Why doesn't the Torah begin with an Aleph? He says the Torah should begin, I'm first. So the Eibishter told him that when it'll be Aseres HaDibris, when I'll give the Torah, Aseres HaDibris, I'll start with Anochi Hashem Elokecha with an Aleph. So the Torah begins with a base, with bracha. Now, why base and not Aleph? So I once mentioned this is a Maimer Hamuzger, but I'll mention it again maybe. Number 9 is a very lucky number, because 9 is Emes. Aleph, Mem, Tov is 9. 4, or Mispagodl is 9. That's why every number you multiply by 9, the answer is 9. 9 times 1 is 9, 9 times 2 is 18, 8 and 1 is 9, 9 times 3 is 27, 7 and 2 is 9, 9 is Emes. Emes always has to go back to Emes. When we write a 9 and a 6 is the same thing, but you take a 9 and you put it upside down, becomes a 6. Why? Because 6 is sheker, the opposite of Emes. Shin is 3, Kuf is 1, and Resh is 2, that's 6. So that's why when you write this, it comes out the opposite, because Emes, sheker is the opposite of Emes. Where is the head of a 9? On top. Where is the head of a 6 on the bottom? And when the Rebbe was a little boy, 10 years old, my Zayde once told me, he was his Malamed, that the Rebbe then said, when a child has his head on top in the right thing, and a lot of things, that's a 9, that's Emes. But when a person has his head on the bottom, that's 6, that is sheker. That is the 6 is sheker. Now, when you count 3 is a chazoko. 3 is a chazoko. B'chal by 3. 3, 6, 9, 12. If the Torah would have begun with an Aleph, if you count Aleph, Beis Gimel is 6. 6 is sheker. After Gimel comes Dalet Hey Vav is 15. 5 and 1 is 6. Again. Zayin Chestes, again, is 24, 4 and 2 is 6, till almost the end. 6 is sheker. That's why the Torah begins with a base. If you start counting with base, the base Gimel Dalet is 9. 9 is Emes. Hevav Zayin is 18. 8 and 1 is 9. Until the end of Aleph base. That's why the Torah begins with a base, not with an Aleph. And this is another reason why the Torah is a base is bracha, that this is Torah's Emes, and this is the heroic that we should always have in our mind, the Inyufun bracha. And that's why the Rebbe had mentioned in one of the letters that Shabbos Mevorchim, which always falls out in Shabbos Bereshis, is a time of farbringen, and a farbringen is a time of giving brachas. So I just wanted to mention that. Now I'm going to share with you a very important letter that Rabbi Mindel asked the Rebbe in 1949. As you know, this letter is written in Hebrew, Lashon Kodesh, and we'll translate that into English. The answer is 2 pages with the Rebbe's Ksav. Now, I misplaced the letter. I have it. I know I have it, and I have to look for it. But over Yom Tov, I couldn't find it. So I will not share with you the answer, but I will only share with you the question. And maybe Chassidim can figure out themselves what the answer is. And then when at my program, maybe in a week or 2, whenever I'll find the answer, then I'll be able to share with you this answer. Now, as you know, that Rabbi Mindel always used to write to the Rebbe. He wrote, and the Rebbe answered. The Frierdiker Rebbe, when he told Rabbi Mindel to translate Tanya in English, he never learned in Lubavitch, in Tomchet Mimim. Rabbi Chadikov never learned in Tomchet Mimim. They come from Yeshiva Torah in Derech Eretz. So the Frierdiker Rebbe told him to translate Tanya, you have to know Tanya. And he never learned Tanya. So he told the Rebbe, then the Ramash, that the Rebbe should give him manuscripts, and the Rebbe should sit with him and write together any questions he has. So he asked the Rebbe, and the Rebbe wrote there and back. There's so many ksavim and so many writings on the Tanya that the Rebbe, that he had questions back and forth. So he always used to ask the Rebbe. The same thing also when he translated the commandments. The Rebbe was Magia, he worked with the Rebbe. The Shmusen, Talks and Tales, the memoirs, the philosophy of Chabad, and my prayer, and our people. This is all with the Rebbe's Hagoyes. Now, also when the Rebbe sent him to classes in Manhattan, the Rebbe wanted that he should join some classes, and then come back and tell him exactly what they asked. So the Rebbe wrote to him the questions, and then the Rebbe answered him. Again, it was writing back and forth. And Bichlal, his private speeches, the Rebbe also was Magia. He spoke at once the Hill Holy Taylor dinner. He spoke, and the Rebbe wanted to know his speech. The Rebbe was Magia that. He spoke in Hillel. He spoke in college. He spoke in YU. Whatever he spoke for the NCFJE. Whatever he went in Washington, the Rebbe was Magia. We have over here the Hagos, a lot of Hagos that the Rebbe Poshet looked over everything. So this is something that I'm going to read that. So he used to write back and forth. And because, also by the way, Reb Gershon Jacobson, Olav Shalom, used to ask him to write for the Allgemeiner, and he wrote for the Allgemeiner, and he showed that to the Rebbe. The Rebbe was Magia, things that it was written in the Allgemeiner. So since now it's Breishis. Breishis speaks about the birth of Adam, Chava. So I found this question about the inclination of a person, and so I want to read to you the question that he asked the Rebbe. Now, by the way, I want to mention again, maybe I mentioned it once. When we speak about Adam and Chava, Adam is Adam. Chava comes from the word Ein Kol Chai. She is the mother of all living. Now, many people, and I hear many speakers, when they speak about Adam and Chava, they say Adam and Eve. And the Rebbe once mentioned Eve is not a word. Eve means evil. By the Goyim, a woman is evil. The opposite of what Torah says, Ein Kol Chai, what Chava is. So when we speak about Adam and Chava, we should not mention the word evil, Eve. We should say Adam and Chava, but not Eve. But that's a Maimer HaMuzkir. Now, I want to read to you this question, and let the Chassidim figure out the answer. And this is, I'll read that in English, and this is from the Hebrew. Kveit Ramash Shlita, Tovshin Tes, Nisan Tovshin Tes. To the honored Ramash Shlita, greeting and blessing. On the subject of psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud introduces the idea that a person has a natural inclination to kill himself, what he calls death inclination, quote unquote. Will not expand on this. Ein kan hamokim laharich. Yachadim zeh, at the same time, a person also has an opposite inclination, a desire to live, which he calls life instinct, quote unquote. Because of the strength of the inclination to kill himself and the fact that it is somewhat limited by the inclination to live, there is born in a person an inclination to hurt another, such as to display anger at another. Freud, therefore, comes to the conclusion that as a result of the death inclination, there comes about in a person an inclination to destroy. According to him, this inclination is one of the basic powers of the soul. Thus, cruelty brings satisfaction and pleasure to a person. This inclination is a constant presence in the person, ready to pounce, to express itself at any moment without any external initiative cause. לפי דעת היצר זה הוא מהכיחס היסודים של הנפש, בסדר זה הוד המציא הוא וזה סיפוק ועדה. יצר זה תודר הוא באדם בגדר של לפסח חטוס רויביץ, מבלי גוירים ואילו מחוץ. Then he writes to the Rebbe like this: there are those later psychologists, yesh bi'achronim, who dispute this idea and say that even though there exists hatred, cruelty, and destruction in the world, it is not necessary to say that these are natural inborn inclinations in a person, but rather that the environment and education cause this. ויש מאחרונים במקצוע שחלקים עליו ואומרים שאף על פי שעשינו ואכזוריס והריסו שכיחס בעולם, אין הכרח לומר כי יצר זה טבעי הוא באדם, אלא שהסביבה הכינו גורמו לזה. Apparently it seems from Freud that a baby is born with the instinct to be cruel to living creatures, as in the story of Yitzchak Shaul in the memoirs. Schapiro al de Yitzchak Shaul v'hatarnegel shebezechrein kvei kedusha admur shlita. The Frierdiker Rebbe writes in the memoirs, and by the way, the Sefer HaZechronos, the memoirs, the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote in Hebrew. He asked Meckler to translate the Zechronos in Yiddish, and he asked the Rabbi and Mrs. Mindel to translate it into English. And by the way, the Frierdiker Rebbe gave the copyright of the memoirs to Rabbi Mindel, the same he gave the Tanya in English the copyright, which we'll go into another time. But they only managed to translate the memoirs in two halakim, not the whole thing. But the third one, Rabbi Mindel prepared my wife that she should finish the third volume. And this is the memoirs that was already printed. I printed already, but now it's out of print. And if we have a sponsor, I would appreciate it. I will be able to print this over. It's a beautiful book. This is the third volume of the Sefer HaZechronos in English, which is a very, very, very important, very good translated with the heroes of Rabbi Mindel. So there in the memoirs, if you see, there's a Maaseh that there was a Bal Mechanech, and he had a son by the name of Yitzchak Shaul, and he saw this was his Yitzchak Shaul was his son, and he saw that his son was torturing the Tarnagelis, which I'm not going to go into the whole story. You can read it. So he called him over and he smacked him, gave him a good few smack for that. And when he finished, the boy went off, and then he overheard on the other side that his father was crying a lot. This is the whole story going on. So he brings down over here this story that apparently it seems from Freud that a baby is born with the instinct to be cruel to living creatures. And also, according to Tanya, that explains the Nefesh HaBahamis, the animal soul, which dwells in the left side of the heart, that is full of blood. It seems that the evil inclination, the Yetzer Hara, is sunk in the animal soul, but in every Jew, the animal soul is derived from the Klipas Noiga. And it can be not only controlled, but it also can be changed. It can be converted. Unlike in Freud's theory, and according to what Tanya writes about the souls of the nation, the idol worshippers, whose source is from Mishar Klippas to Atmoyes, which have absolutely She'ein Bahem Teif Klal, absolutely no good. This correlates exactly with Freud's theory. So this is what he writes to the Rebbe. Now he's asking the Rebbe that the Rebbe should answer three shilas. He has three questions. The first question, Ma das Ramash? What is the opinion of the Rebbe about the above, according to the teaching of Chabad, Apil Toras Chabad? That's question number one. Question number two, Im yesh chidush b'shitas Chabad, does the philosophy of Chabad have a novel take on psychology in general as compared to Jewish philosophers? And who from them dealt with these questions? Mi mehem donu b'shailas elu. This is question number two. And question number three, he writes, Mara Mikemis, he wants to know from the Rebbe, Mara Mikemis, sources in Chabad teaching that deal with questions of psychology. The topic is broad and includes the relationship Hayachas shebein ha-seichel v'chsidus, between seichel and midos, the intellect and emotions, hergesh, feelings, simcha v'atzvus, joy and sadness, gaive, by nivet, pride and humility, and taive, kvishes hayetzer, lust and self-control, v'chulu. With thanks in advance, nisamindal. So this is the question that he asked the Rebbe. It's a very, very important question, and it's and until I will share with you what the Rebbe answered, which is amazing. I have to get it somewhere. So meanwhile, it would be a good idea for Chassidim or people in Chassidus or Maskilim should look into this answer, and if they want to put a comment about the answers, Gesundheit, and when I get the Rebbe's answer, we'll be able I'll be able to share with you. And this is the program that I wanted. This is today's program. And the Mitzvah Hashem, next week we will continue our regular weekly Thursday night program. Thank you.